And we are live with another Wikid Weekend Podcast episode. Really excited to be with you guys today. We have a really fun episode, I think, with some really great people with us. My name is Michael. Of course, I'm here every week with you, your intrepid host for the Wikid Podcast. Sometimes joined by off and on host Matt as well. But he's obviously not here today. Instead, we will be joined by some really awesome comic creators who are under the Wikid Publishing lineup. And a couple who haven't heard from a while on the podcast. Really excited to hear from them and see what they've been up to and promote some of the new projects that they've been doing. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and introduce you guys and to the people watching. And we'll go ahead and start with you, Jeremy.
Okay, I'm Jeremy Lott. So the comic I have with Wikid is Movie Men, which we put out an issue, and at some point we're going to get number 2 out there.
Woohoo!
But I've kind of veered away from comics for a little while here, and to publish children's books. So this is Growlylocks and the Three Humans, and this is the Three Feral Pigs and the Vegan Wolf. You can see this is a proof because I still don't have when you publish through Amazon. Once you publish it, then you have to actually order the issues, and they've not arrived yet. So it's kind of an ass backwards way of doing it, but it it works in its own way.
And so there's the final version there. I see Growlylocks.
Yeah, exactly. And so this was published a couple of months ago. This was published last Friday. Yeah. And we're going to. This will be a 4-book series. Paula Ritchie, who you're familiar with, who's written other things, she took art duties on this for the first time for a whole book.
Interesting.
And I think she just really knocked it out of the park. I'll just show you guys just a little bit so you can kind of see some of what goes on in here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
So, and I'll show you a little bit from this, and then we can get to introducing the other guys and maybe circle back to me.
Yeah, I'd love to see some more.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about how you came up with these ideas for these stories, man.
Happy to tell you.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah. And so then we also have with us, going in counterclockwise order, we have Michael from Omen Comics and Revelation.
Well, yeah, that about does it.
Well, no, go ahead and why don't you tell us a little more about what that is?
Okay. My name is Michael Nunley. Omen Comics is like a blend of mythology, apocalyptic themes, and superheroes. Revelation Comics is a blend of titles. Like we have an all-ages superhero title, a Nigerian war title, and a Viking horror story. I mean, it's a broad range of titles. There's also the Omen Comics Podcast Network with Omen Revelations Podcast, Countless Corpses Podcast, and the Fellowship of the D20, which Mike has recently joined.
Yeah, I just had my first adventure on that one on last Sunday, was it maybe, or the week before?
I think it was last Sunday.
Yeah, that was really fun. That was awesome. We almost died, and we almost spoiler. We almost, it was bad.
Yeah, those guys were a bit too overpowered for level 1 characters.
Yeah, dude. I was shocked. I was like, dang, he's not holding any punches. Well, yes, and then of course, like you said, you have your Countless Corpses podcast where you guys talk about horror movies.
Yeah, I really love doing that. I'm a longtime horror fan, and actually, my co-host is also a longtime horror fan. But both of us are horror writers, and I think that makes this up. We can kind of go over a horror movie in a way that might not be done by everybody else, as we're looking at it from a writer's perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a cool. I like that, man. Yeah. As a big horror fan myself, I love to dive into that. So I've listened to quite a few episodes of that show.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
The Halloween episodes in particular were a lot of fun. I was going through all the Halloween movies, so those was a good companion podcast.
Yeah, 7 episodes on those. We didn't cover
That's wild.
We didn't cover all of the Halloween movies because,
many.
Quite frankly, I don't have to like every movie that we cover, but I'd rather not cover ones I hate.
So did not do the one with Ice-T then?
We
was that H2O?
We did not. It wasn't Ice-T.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was Busta Rhymes, dude.
Busta Rhymes, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, Busta Rhymes.
Yeah, somehow by saying the word motherfucker before kicking Michael Myers gives him the power to defeat him.
I loved how they had like a fight. He goes mano a mano with him.
Yeah.
I mean, the franchise has already established that it has like a supernatural basis, so why the fuck not, right now? Neighborhood magic. Neighborhood magic, motherfucker.
Speaking of which, we have our final guest on the podcast, or creator on the podcast today, Canales, Ibai Canales. Welcome.
Hola. Yeah, I'm the guy who writes and draws Decimators, and I'm also Spanish, so apologies for that.
Yes, Decimators with Wikid Publishing. Of course, you also done a bunch of other stuff. Iron Sights, in particular, was a really great one. You did Abductables, and
thank you. I was OGCG, as some people put it. I was there when the Comicsgate movement exploded, and I did a bunch of pretty famous IPs, at least in the community, like Iron Sights, which is about to publish its third installment, and I also worked on the Abductables 1 and 2, and on the 3 volumes of SOS, which I loved because it was written much like the Abductables by a guy who has a sense of humor as sick as twisted as my own. Several other like smaller, less known projects. So yeah, I've been pretty busy.
What was that one you did? It was something like Necromancer or something?
Yes, Necromancer. Yeah, Necromancer was about to be a thing, but Jacob, the writer, had to basically move countries, so he didn't have the time to continue the franchise. So I actually own the rights now, according to him.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's awesome.
It is.
That would be cool to keep going with that.
That's another thing. Michael and I were talking about possible future projects that we could make with Wikid. We were talking about this other project that I had, maybe a remix or a remaster of an older comic that I had, but maybe like a Necromancer series would be cool because it's
would be awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's like this Tolkien style fantasy, but in a World War II noir type setting.
And it's all
cyberpunk elements.
I think it's my favorite art I've seen of you too, that you've done. I
Interesting.
like your art at all times. Don't get me wrong, but there was just something about that it just clicked really well. You're going to be great if you want to carry that on, because I don't think people know that your background was actually as a writer, and then you kind of got into art. Boy, I will back the crap out of that.
That's a good idea because thanks for that, first and foremost. And I really like the universe because it takes me back to my tabletop gaming days, Warhammer 40K and Cyberpunk and all that. And I think Jacob actually had a project of creating a tabletop game based on the universe. It's really cool. It's crazy elaborate with all these factions fighting each other, and there's a background of 2 major global superpowers fighting.
Wow, there's a lot of potential there, man, for a good story.
Yeah, there's it's crazy. You can have smaller in-city adventures, noir style, the original volume, or you can have a more bigger epic scale combat, war movie, in the second volume. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And as you said, Jeremy, I think my art there peaked because it had everything that I like, which is monsters and robots and guns and whatnot. So there wasn't a single page in that comic book that I didn't love drawing.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. I really, I know it'll take a while, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it could be how you see TV shows jump networks sometimes where it gets picked up for the 3rd season. It's you could do that. That sounds fun, man.
I do have a question for Jeremy, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering why you obviously started out doing comic books with Movie Men. And you said that you kind of you took a break from that to do these children's books. What I'm wondering is why you chose to do it in a book fashion with art in it rather than making a children's comic book.
Partly because, well, let me show you guys something. So I'm in my son's room here, right? you know, you can kind of see there's toys and there's a crib and I won't show my daughter's room because she'd yell at me. But so I got and read a lot of children's books to my kids, right? Because they're 2 and 4. And I also kind of looked at how that market is developed. And the print on demand market for children's books is huge. I mean, there are people that make very good livings, or some that actually get rich. Although I don't have any illusions I'm going to get rich off of this. By writing a market for the children's book market. At the same time, I've seen what comics are like in terms of delivery on Amazon. The orders are very small, and the way that Amazon fulfills shipment orders, it's not a good product. Typically, they don't have a good handle on individual comic books. And so I've ordered a lot and they just come wrecked versus I've ordered kids books and they come okay, you know?
Interesting.
So it's a more well-developed market. I'm reading all these things with my kids regularly anyways. And, I believe that Amazon has its crap together when it comes to actually delivering kids books in a usually on time and non-wrecked fashion. So it was a confluence of those things.
Now, sorry, I had a question. Do you think you'd ever try to seek more traditional publishing methods for any of your books like that you're putting out like this?
I mean, I wouldn't say no. You know, there's I'll say the name of it. There's a children's book press that I really love called Candlewick Press, and once I have this series, done, I'm gonna take all 4 of them and send them to them and say,
that'd be awesome.
Could we do? I have a lot more ideas, or we could do a collected edition of this, or could we work something out?
Nice, man.
And we'll see what they say, and
nice.
Probably nothing, but who knows?
Hey, but you're putting in the work right now, and so I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I have how I would hoard comic books. I literally have eight done comic books ready to. There's maybe a little bit of window dressing on a few of them, but I mean, all the art's done for 8 different comics, right?
Yeah, totally.
I'm not hoarding as much when it comes to kids' books, but I have a lot of scripts that I've created, and I was counting the other day, and I just took all of the things that I'd done to date that could be a kid's book. That doesn't mean you're gonna do it, but maybe, right? And this was a couple weeks ago, and it came to 19. And I've written several since. So when I'm done on the podcast here, I'm gonna put the finishing touches on a book called The Coffee Monster. For the writing of it. And
that sounds fun.
The other thing is that I have this network of really good artists from the comic book world, and it's you got to rethink a little bit of this, but in terms of panel count, it's way easier to draw a kid's book than a comic book,
Makes sense.
Most pages are a panel, right?
Right.
And so, when you come to them and say I want this many panels, they're like, that's all. Right. And so there are a lot of artists that I've worked with and that I've approached, and it's been pretty positive about them doing stuff, illustrating books for me. Doug Curtis is going to illustrate a few.
Oh, nice.
I think we'll see, knock on wood, but Paula Ritchie is knocking this out of the park. And I think there's going to be, so this series is called Fantastic Fables. And we're going to do another series that's more Bible related, and it's going to be called Fantastic Parables.
Okay.
And I think she may end up illustrating that as well. And that's another thing is that it's quite easy to do series on Amazon, and you don't have to crowdfund it or something.
That is nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm rambling a bit here, but those are some of the reasons that I decided to do kids' books.
Well, that's really cool, man. I really like that you're flexing those muscles, because I do think it takes a different skill set, and it's really cool to see you branching out and doing different things.
I asked.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
I asked specifically because I was in a situation with another publisher where they were wanting to do a book that I had already written out in comic book form.
Yeah.
And it was like, once I saw it in that form with the panels doing all the description of the scene and everything and all that, they wanted me to try and transfer that over into a prose form, to try and I just couldn't.
That's interesting.
While I have written some prose before, I couldn't really transfer the idea I had in that comic into a prose form and do it justice, I thought. So I guess I was just wondering if that was a factor at all.
Look, comic books and kids books are very, very similar. Technically it's rendered as prose, but you could do this in word balloons, right? So I'm going to give you, if it's okay, can I read 2 pages? Is that all right?
Yeah,
okay. So I'll show you the pages real quick here. Here's the 2-page spread. And this is actually one of the illustrations of where it's a good idea to get a comic book person to do a kid's book, because she goes, cameo appearance. So she decided when I mentioned bears that she was going to take the star of my first book and put him into the second one.
Oh, nice.
Anyways.
So Growliox appears in that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just said bears, but she decided the bear in question was Growliox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's the Jeremy Lott expanded universe.
Yeah, and so the story here is that the Kevin the wolf is not eating meat, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And so the leader of the pack is having a conversation with him, and that's the 2 pages I'm going to read to you really quick here, okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right. One day, Alpha asked Kevin why he wasn't sharing in the pack supper. I might be a vegan, Kevin said. What is a vegan? Alpha asked. A vegan doesn't eat other animals, Kevin said. Or honey, he added. What's wrong with honey? Asked Alpha. I don't know, Kevin admitted, but the bears get mighty upset when they catch you. So you could do that I'm rendering it in prose, but you could do that in word bubbles, right? Or at least most of it. And so they're very close. So it wasn't difficult for me to make that transition.
Okay. I kind of see what you mean. Yeah. That's interesting. I've actually had an idea for a children's story. I almost did it a couple, actually quite a number of years back. I had an artist we were going to collaborate on together.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it just didn't come together. I might try to reach out to her again and see.
Yeah. I mean, I would look at all the specs, because it's like a children's book is like, this is a typical children. Like, there are different sizes,
I might have to cut down my story.
Yeah. I
my
mean,
story's like way too complex for maybe a children's book.
Yeah. I mean, like, basically for something like this, you aim between 500 and 1,000 words. That's typical. Sometimes you can go a little over. I wouldn't go much over that, or under, but I wouldn't go over that. If you go over that, then you're getting into the next sort of strata of kids' books, and those are easy readers, which are fine. But I'm just
like
saying,
a novella almost.
They're like, I could. Let me see.
What's an easy reader? I'm not really sure. I know
here. Like this is called Harry's Squirrel Trouble, right? It's Harry. I think the first book in this series was called Harry the Dirty Dog, right? This is an I Can Read book, so that's another version of the easy reader, and they're
kind of like a Wishbone book when I was growing up.
You saw how the other one was square. This is more
rectangle, like a novel would be.
And there's more. The prose gets to stand more alone rather than being mixed. So like.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah.
You can see how they separate the prose and
almost
the
like
more.
Does Dr. Seuss did that? I think right.
Yeah. I'd have to look at. I'd have to grab a Seuss book, and I don't have one at the ready.
I don't have one either.
You can see how
actually I do, yeah, but maybe
you can see how they're separated. They separate.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're right.
So that's more the easy reader format.
Okay.
If you get above 1,000 words, almost always you can. There are exceptions, but basically you're thinking easy reader.
Okay.
And this is the thing we're gonna do.
Okay.
But I'm just showing you that you have to think of them differently.
That's wild. I never thought about it.
I gotta say, I tried to write a Christmas, sort of children's story. I guess it was kind of more like an all ages thing, but as a horror writer, it got very dark very quickly.
and then Santa Claus died.
I have a similar problem by which I try to like not be funny, and that's impossible.
Yeah, I can't either.
We call Michael Macabre Michael.
There you go.
Yeah, that's my persona on the Countless Corpses podcast show. I wear a Jason mask and everything.
Yeah, I should. So there's a comic book I've done that is kind of light horror. I should send it to you and kind of ask you for some tips for what to do in the future. I still want it to be kind of horror, but like not. There are like gradations of horror, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
there are many. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like body horror. Well,
not a slasher.
It's definitely what I'm gonna call light horror, though. I guess you probably have a more clinical term for that.
Well, I mean, it really kind of depends on the content. Are we talking about supernatural?
Yeah, So the comic book is called Murder, right? And the first issue, it's you just understanding who this guy is, and he's a so I tried to write it as a superhero comic, and it wouldn't write. And finally, I realized that's not right. This is a horror comic, and so then I just tried to push it slightly more in that direction, and then it would write. And it's about a guy who's a champion of the crows, and what he does to some people who mess with a bunch of crows. Yeah, I'll send it your way one of these days, and you can.
Is that linked with death in some fashion?
A murder is a collection of crows, right?
Right.
And so what it is the crows came together. This is the backstory. You don't get much of that in the first issue. The crows basically created something and made a deal with a person that made him into a champion of them, and he gets supernatural powers as a result of this, is kind of like a enforcer for the crows.
Interesting. I could definitely see what you mean. It's it definitely feels like it leans more towards like the Neil Gaiman-esque kind of horror in my kind of or like a Clive Barker, maybe like a Clive, I
was thinking it could work as a more almost like an anthology series, like this guy almost being like in the background and being about the people he stalks or like brings to justice to some degree, like Shadow of the Bats, something like that.
Yeah, I definitely need to focus more on the. If I do more in this, and I want to, I'm going to be focusing more on the people that he interacts with than the character murder. So yes, you have a good idea there.
I'm actually thinking that like I would probably develop the crows themselves. Like my initial thought is to have some sort of a council of crows of some sort that would actually determine what things he's supposed to be doing.
Okay. Interesting.
Like perhaps maybe the crows themselves are just a means for this council to communicate with him.
Well, so what happens in the first issue at the beginning? So we're not doing a lot of spoiling. Is a bunch of crows. You know how crows, they're very social creatures, and so if you hear a crow distress cry, a bunch of crows come in to see what's going on, right? So you have a couple of rednecks that they've videoed or they've recorded a crow distress cry, so they play it, and a bunch of crows come to see what's going on, and then they ambush them and like kill a bunch of them, and only one of them gets away, right? And finds their champion and says, you got to go deal with these guys, basically. And so that's the first issue. Well, my question to you is like, what sort of horror would that be categorized as?
I think I would call that myself dark fantasy, or I guess Michael said like Neil Gaiman. But I'm not Michael is the expert, so
yeah.
I would put that under supernatural horror.
Okay.
I can see that, yeah. Because like you said, it's not body horror necessarily. It's not like the slasher or any kind of like psychological horror necessarily.
Yeah, and we try to keep it kind of, there are some horrific elements of it, but we didn't dwell on them at length. We'll just say that.
Have you heard of a book called The Thief of Always by Clive Barker?
Yeah. I haven't read any of Barker's books. I read some of his comics back in the day, but I haven't read any of his books.
That one's really good because it's actually for a younger audience, but it's still a horror. It's like I feel like it's a really well done in that genre style. So if you're looking for anything to maybe be inspired by, yeah.
All right, I'll write that down. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you always have so many projects going on, man.
Yeah, like I'm a plate juggler.
Seriously, yeah. Oh man, that's funny. But yeah, you and Ebi both, I feel like, have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, what can we get to? Well, I don't know who you're the host. What? But I'm really looking forward to have Ebi describe what he's up to.
Yeah, dude, I would love to hear some more about that.
Cool. Thanks for asking. Now that you mentioned Neil Gaiman and dark fantasy, I'm actually working for a particular. I don't think any of us know him, but I'm illustrating a story, a 12-pager about. Well, it's basically dark fantasy too, and it reminds me a bit of Labyrinth and Dark Crystal.
Okay.
It's about this elvish woman or elven woman who's like make her way through it's not really an enchanted forest, but let's just say that there's like a wild garden and just like huge gothic looking machines in charge of like taking care of it, and she has to avoid them. So it's like a dark fantasy. It's got some body horror elements to it. It's really cool. It's something that I'm enjoying drawing, which is, as I said earlier about Necromancer, it's always that I love, like when they give me stuff that I like to draw, like monsters and robots and stuff. And I'm also I'm gonna begin working for Wikid as well again, like retouching, finishing some new volumes of Decimators.
Okay.
Yeah, we got volume 7 coming out here soon.
Are you gonna are you gonna get to a point where you collect them all together, or what are you thinking in those terms?
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, if it's possible, I suppose we could try and do that. And it'd be interesting to see if we would do the same Ashcan mini format for the volume, or if it would, if what we would do with that, because it would be an interesting. It almost looked like a flip book at that point. But it would, and the reason we do that is because it was originally a webcomic. Yeah. And so we like to keep that art in that format, so we don't have to distort anything and give people the true representation. We're getting some bonus story for this next volume. So it'll be a 2-pager new backstory in the back about some of the characters, and maybe some bonus character profile kind of content.
Yeah.
One of the things that Omen Comics does is like every 4 issues, we just collect them into a digital trade. They're a bit too expensive to print right now.
That's fair, yeah.
But digital trades work pretty good. I usually I'll sell the digitals for like the individual comics for like $3. But when I collect them in a trade, you could get the trade for like what is it, like $9.99? I think it is.
Mm-hmm. So that's right. They can save a bit then.
Yeah,
that's true. We haven't done anything like that with Decimators yet. Maybe we should think about that as well.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not opposed to like a Decimators omnibus. I think that would be a good idea. I don't know how well omnibuses or omnibuy sell, but I think that I mean, more Decimators is always good.
We're trying to.
I collect digital comics.
Oh, do you?
And because I flat out don't have the room for physical comics. I don't have the storage space. I'll tell you, me personally, I like to buy the big collected editions. Like I want to buy the omnibuses because I want to read a whole bunch of stories in one book, and I will typically go for those over like just a usual trade if one is available.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. my friends I have a friend like that too. He loves the omnibus and the collected 3-in-1s. I usually go for like the single volume size is my like ideal. I think I did a grand experiment where I for a while was pre-ordering a bunch of single issues of different comics, and I just was hard to keep up with a lot of when they're coming in single issue. I find the graphic novels a little bit more manageable size, depending on
Plus,
how many you're reading, I guess. But
digital comics are a lot more in my price range.
Oh, well, that's fair. Yeah.
Like for instance, I recently picked up the first 2 Hellboy omnibuses for I think it was like $7.99 each.
Okay. How much do you know how much the physical is?
You're looking at like $25 or $30 at least, if not 40 or 45. It depends on how old the comic is. Like the really old, the older omnibuses seem to go for a little bit cheaper in physical. But when you get to the new stuff, I mean, you could spend $50-$60 on one of those.
And then how do you read your digital comics usually?
Tablet.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, I've noticed it helps a lot. Like I don't know if you guys have ever read old Predator comics, but the lettering from Dark Horse back in the day was terrible. I mean, terrible. Often illegible, but when reading them digitally, I can zoom in on the page, and once it's big and blown up like that, I can finally read what the hell these people are saying. I spent decades wondering what the hell they were saying in that Predator comic.
Well, I was lucky enough to be able to read those comics with a Spanish translation, so I didn't miss much. I think.
Maybe you guys had better letters over there.
I'm guessing you did, because the American letters over here sucked in the 90s.
They must have been in demand. Yeah, so I used to like be really anti-digital comics, not just because of the experience, right? It was not as fun as reading a print. That's changed a little bit because now Kindle has they took something from Comixology and they'll like focus on individual panels and usually it works to sort of drive through a story that way.
I love that, yeah.
And it's gotten better. I still very much prefer print, but like I don't disdain digital the way that I used to just because it's a better experience than it used to be.
I tend to do a mix of both. Like I get a lot of physical, but then I've been getting more and more digital because I do have a tablet. Although I need to get a new tablet because my tablet is so old. It's a really old Kindle, and they stopped supporting Comixology app.
Yeah,
and so I can't even download any of my old books to it anymore.
That's lame.
Yeah, so I need to try and upgrade, but it is fun. I do enjoy that experience.
I gotta say though, I do. When we're talking to my own comics, I gotta have the physical copy. I mean, because there are 2 really awesome moments when it comes to making comics, and that is getting the art, at least from a writer's perspective, and that is getting the art back from the artist the first time. When you finally see that stuff that only existed in your mind, like brought to life on the page, that moment is amazing. The next really awesome moment is holding that baby in your hand. Physically in your hand, that is a great moment. So I mean, I'm not trying to discount the physical comics, but I know that like with mine, I print up at least enough for the people who worked on it to get that copy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's good. No, I agree. Especially the getting the art thing, it's such a great feeling.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, to me it's the same. It's when you're holding the thing and you're like actually going through the pages and reading it, because the lettering is important, as you said, Michael.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like when it comes together, it all comes together, and you finally read it, and then I don't know, find the balance between the art and the prose and all that. That's what really like sells it for me. That's when it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. Speaking of lettering, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but like, lettering really is has value. It sets the mood. It sets the pace. It leads you through the page. But there's also a point where you can go too artistic with it, like Arkham Asylum, Serious House on Serious Earth. that went way too artistic with the lettering. I mean, it was so obscure and artsy and everything that, like, I mean, I honestly have to get the digital just to figure out what some of the things are saying. It's just not readable in printed form to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know what the lettering, because the Joker speaks, if I remember correctly, without balloons. Like his
Right.
words are like printed like straight into the page with like red letters. I don't
Right.
know what's that's supposed to sound like. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. I got the, in reading it, I got the impression that it's supposed to seem weird. It's supposed to seem uncomfortable. Like they want you to feel the kind of madness of the asylum while you're reading it. But it just went too far, in my opinion. When you've gone so far into that you can't just read it, I think you've lost something.
Yeah.
Well, you know, madness is supposed to be uncomfortable, so
Right.
I guess in that regard they succeeded.
yeah, they did there.
So, can I ask you what's happening with? You may not be able to answer this. What's happening with Iron Sights right now?
Well, I think I spoiled something about Iron Sights in the last podcast I was in, so I'll better shut up to some degree about it. But I know that SAG is planning another volume.
Okay.
That is going to maybe kinda be a crossover. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything else. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to get any of those like angry yet strangely lifeless mails that SAG sends you. It's called stop doing that. It's making me uncomfortable.
We'd have to edit that out.
I'm just joking. I love you, SAG.
Yeah, no, he did. He said something about that in a thing to backers. All right, so I knew there was going to be some kind of follow up, but I just didn't.
Yes,
and it's going to be some weird crossover with like one of the sci-fi things, which was, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm along for this ride, so I'll be interested to see where it's going.
It's SAG style, dude. I still remember some people that were like actually outraged at the fate of some of the characters in Volume 2.
Yeah,
because one of the main characters of Volume 1 that is presented as the main character of Volume 2 like dies halfway through the story.
Yeah,
and people were like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah,
apparently, he didn't like the character, so he killed him off and introduced.
I don't remember who said this, but I want to say director said this about making movies. He said, "If you're not pissing some people off, you didn't make it right."
It's got a point, because if you are true to your vision, if you are really personal, you're like, some people are gonna disagree with you. So I'm not averse to that idea. Just don't try to piss people off just because of it, because that's what Hollywood seems to be doing these days.
I'm not suggesting that you attempt to piss people off, but if you're honestly doing your work, if you're really being you, and that doesn't bother some people, if there isn't some kind of division on the views there, then perhaps it wasn't quite done correctly, is all.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I mean, I remember my favorite directors will like always piss someone off. Like, I don't know, David Cronenberg was called a pornographer, so was John Carpenter. John Carpenter, I think, was like, they basically throw him pocket change whenever they see him like near any studios. Like, oh, still alive. Oh, look at him. It's like my favorite people are always like the underdogs.
Wow, man, that's wild. I got breaking news here. Sorry, not to change topics too much, but I just saw something that I thought was pretty cool. We got any fans of 28 Days Later in the house?
Oh yeah.
Looks like 28 years later is now the title of the threequel. Alex Garland has finished the script. Danny Boyle wants to direct, and Cillian Murphy is down to return.
He's down to return like 20 years.
Let's go, dude. I've been waiting for that movie for like 20 years.
28 years later, that's just got to be like post-apocalyptic. The whole Earth is just.
I mean, it's been like 17 years since the first movie, right? Or like 20 years.
It's been a long time.
Oh shit.
Let's see. You've seen that one, Jeremy?
I've seen a bit of it.
Okay.
The writer Steve Niles did something to do with that, and I like his stuff
Yeah.
a great deal. So, that's how I kind of came into who Steve Niles is, and he's done some comic books that I really enjoy.
Interesting.
So,
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to remember
That's cool.
most recent. He did one for TKO about a werewolf. Ibai, you'd actually probably like that one.
I remember actually Steve Niles made one of my favorite comics when I was a kid that I still reread to this day. It was an adaptation of Clive Barker's The Yattering and Jack for the Tapping the Vein anthology.
Okay.
And it was great. I don't know if it was because of Steve Niles or because of Clive Barker, but I love that story. It's like a 12-page story, 20-page story. I don't know, it's really short, but I really enjoy it. So I know the guy. I can.
Okay. He did it. So he did a graphic novel for TKO called Lonesome Days, Savage Nights that I quite liked and would commend to you. And it's about a werewolf former cop and a drug kingpin whose son is killed and how that all intersects.
Okay, it's crime horror is one of the subgenres that I would like to see more of.
Yes,
because I like those.
It's that.
Mm-hmm. Like I like horror, but I like when they go out of their comfort zone and mix it up with other genres like war horror, like Predator or like Dog Soldier, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think crime horror hasn't been done enough. I can think of a movie like crime horror, maybe the original Underworld, also written by Clive Barker.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I want more of that subgenre. Yeah.
I actually, it hasn't been published, but I wrote it's a sci-fi noir, but very horror influenced kind of comic. Takes place in the far future. I think 26th century or something like that.
Huh?
But
that would be a comic.
That was the comic actually that they wanted me to turn into.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, I got to tell you, after seeing the art for the first few pages, I'm like, there's no way that's going to be nearly as awesome as prose.
Well, yeah, with the comics, you definitely have the benefit of it being a visual medium. You can do so much with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I take advantage of that. In a Gallowsman comic, I take a whole page just to describe a Colombian necktie.
Yeah, that'll do it.
As you do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, yeah. I've done a little bit of horror with my Endemic comic, and then I did one horror scene in Barrels. That was fun. But horror is a good genre. So,
looking forward to some more Barrels.
Yeah, the final issue comes out this month. The printer is working on it. It's at the printer right now. I think it should be out hopefully in the next week or so. Even it's supposed to be out like last week, but
does that mean you have a PDF for it?
Yeah. Yeah. Why, you want me to slide it your way or something?
I might appreciate taking a look at that. Yeah.
The final issue of Barrels. I love the cover. Can I show you the cover of it real quick?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll bring it up here. Of course, I worked with Jeff Lasley on the art.
Great guy.
I like his stuff a lot.
Yeah, he's so good. He is working on his own project right now, I think.
Cool.
And then I'm not sure. I have to talked about Honors is another one of our creators. He did what should we call it? He did Holger. He's got a couple horror comics coming out soon. One called The Clown and another called The Therapist.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I believe he's going to be talking to Jeff about maybe working on one of those books.
Cool.
Is The Clown about Gacy by any chance?
I don't know actually, but I know more about The Therapist, but I don't know as much about this Clown one. Those are pretty early development stages.
Hey, you guys, I gotta drop out because it's getting late and it's dinner time.
Can I tell you one thing?
Sure.
All right. I think you were talking about sort of like police horror. Denzel Washington was in a movie called Fallen that I think is along those lines.
Yeah. That movie
yeah,
is
that's
awesome.
another subgenre that I like, and I long to like create a story. It's like instead in that subgenre, it's like a cop that chases something not of this world. Like Predator 2. It's basically the same subgenre.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Right.
like that's a great movie, by the way. I really like it.
You check out the if you're looking for something like that, real quick before you go, Ebi, there's a comic called Moonshine by Brian Azzarello.
Okay.
Great mixture of it's a 1920s mafia story, but with a supernatural twist.
Okay, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm finally traveling to the US this August after the restrictions have been lifted.
Yeah.
Yes, finally. So I need some some indication of what I can buy. That's
Nice.
come out. I'm completely in the dark about it.
That's what's up, dude. Oh, we didn't even get to talk about your comics that you bought from in Europe.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh man, so many
anyone
of them. So many.
Anyone you want to name off the top of your head, real quick, before you go?
I remember this one called Finn, Finn, by Pat Mills. I'm sure you guys know him from like Judge Dredd. He's like the co-creator of Judge Dredd, and it's about this. There is no easy or sane way of explaining this. He's a cab driver by day, but he's an eco-terrorist by night who works for a cabal of witches hell-bent on destroying the Western civilization because it's actually ruled by fish gods from another dimension presenting themselves as God.
I love it.
How's that?
How's that? Does that sound like some Grant Morrison shit, or is that just me?
Yes. Grant Morrison didn't invent anything. Everything he does is a ripoff of like Alan Moore, Pat Mills, and a ton of other like British writers. And I really like this comic because if you're familiar with Pat Mills's work, he's like really brainy and he likes to like go deep into whatever he's writing about. So he will like bring up like actual like witchcraft incidents and actual witchcraft info. And there's this one scene, well, that's actually twice in the book that I bought, in which the main character speaks in ancient Basque. I kid you not. I thought that really cool because the Basques are like the oldest people in Europe, and we have like a long and honorable history of witchcraft. So he's done his own work. He knows that Basques are into witchcraft. So if you are writing about a European guy who practices witchcraft, you gotta mention the Basques at some point, and he did, and I found that really cool.
That is nice. That's a good touch, man.
Sweet.
Oh,
wow. That's a crazy comic. Finn, Finn. If you can get your grubby hands on it, like I totally recommend it. It's crazy.
That's
really
awesome, man. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate the recommendation, and thanks for coming on the podcast, man. We'll definitely have to meet up soon to talk more about some of those ideas we were talking about earlier.
Yes, and anytime. Just drop me a link, and I'll be more than happy to join.
Cool, man. Well, you take
Live
care.
long and prosper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Later,
May the force be with you.
Yes, thank you.
I can be a nerd too. I'm also. I'm one of you.
Yes, there can be only one Canales.
I understood that reference. All right, see you guys.
See you, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. But so I was just pulling up the cover here for the final issue.
So that doesn't look anything like any of the previous covers. I mean, and I'm not saying that's bad. It looks. I mean, this. I really like the black background, and the logo looks just fucking bitching on there.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I don't recall your other covers being quite so vivid.
That's true. The first one is in complete black and white, so that one is kind of very stark in that way, but it does not as vivid, like you said. And in the first, even in the first couple, the guns barrels they alternate from being black or white depending on if it's a darker or lighter background. But in this one, I was like, final issue, we're going all out, full red. So we get the.
I really like the red. The red is really nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I thought it would be appropriate to put the final blood-soaked issue.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That looks a little bit like O.J. Simpson on the cover.
That's hilarious.
So that guy is toast.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's that's the main bad guy on the right there.
Okay.
And then actually that's the main character on the left who's toast right there.
Okay. So tell me, if you could just talk like in terms of I don't even know exactly how to pose this question, but what all did you learn in the making of barrels?
Wow, that's a really good question. One of the biggest things I think I learned is that longer is not always better. When me and Jeremy first contact together, I had originally envisioned barrels like this epic 20 issue plus thing that would go on for years, and it would be this thing. There'd be all these there'd be like hundreds of characters, like there'd be so many all these storylines. And Jeff was like, "Oh yeah, no, I can't do that. I think you might need to find a different artist." I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to lose this amazing artist that I found. Like he's so good. I love his work." So I was like,
Yeah.
well, "Okay, what if I pare down the story to 4 issues?" And he's like, "Can you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do it because I need to work with you." And so
I got to ask something real quick about that. What you're talking about there is called compressed storytelling. They used to do this. That's how they used to make comic books back in like the 80s and 90s, whatever, right? That's where that's why how the Dark Knight Returns is a 4-issue comic.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I think it makes sense to me because like you really get to do the beginning, the middle, the change, the climax, the end. Like it has all of the great things you need in a complete story, and you can do it in a nice little thing where it all feels, there's enough to where each, you can have the change of character, you can have the character grow and learn something by the end, and have your message come across. So I feel like it feels like a really good amount. So for me, just learning to condense my story was a big thing, and I think Barrels is way better.
Did you do any I don't know, how did I for instance, I cannot do compressed storytelling. If I'm going to tell a story, it's going to be at least 32 pages long. I just cannot do a short story. So I'm wondering maybe what techniques you used or maybe what research you did on how to do that.
Well, so one thing is I try to keep every issue to 24 pages. So I believe the 4th issue and maybe the 3rd issue are a little over that, but the first 2 are strictly 24 pages. Because I was like, okay, that's my standard. I want to stick to it. So I want to complete my whatever I want to say within this first issue needs to be done within the first 24 pages. So I think about, okay, how many pages do I want to allot for this scene? And how many do I want to allot for this scene? How much real estate do I want to give to each scene? And I think about that when I'm kind of creating the issue.
Yeah. No, one of the things I found with comic books that is a little bit less of a thing with kids' books, because what I do when I do a kids' book is I just write the story out from one end to the other, right? And then I think of some visual cues to talk with the artist about. There's so much of writing a comic book where you're like a panel engineer.
Right?
You're like, okay. And one of the things I learned a trick, which was that if you're having a problem with space, write the end first. Like write the last page or 2.
Interesting.
Get that done, and then be like, okay, this is where I'm ending. This is how much space I have between here and there, and how am I going to get there? I have a maximum of X number of panels, right?
Right.
And that was helpful, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
But you really are. You're trying to figure out like how I have so much space. How do I make that work? And that is a huge consideration for comic book scripters, writers, whatever you want to call us.
Spacing is actually one of the issues that actually tends to make my comic books long. When I'm writing out a panel, I'm thinking about, okay, what things have to be in here to get the point across that I want here? What little subtle notes do I want to leave in there? And then I think I'm thinking about, well, how much space does an artist need to tell that with the lettering, with enough space in there for the lettering? And so I usually tend to over budget for that. Like I'll put less panels on a page to give more room for the art, because I'm afraid of a more condensed picture not getting what I want across.
I can understand that, for me, like, I don't even take that in consideration. Like, I tell the artist, here it is, here's what you're gonna do, and then it's to my mind, it's their job to figure out how. If they're both a letterer and the artist, then it's their job. But if you, for me, example, I work with a separate letterer and a separate artist usually.
Me too.
Yeah.
And, okay, yeah, you do too. So yeah, I trust that the letterer will be able to figure out a way to make it work, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that, like, so I typically work with artists who are doing the lettering as well, right?
Interesting.
And because it's just easier if you can work with someone who just does it all,
That makes sense. Yeah.
And it can't always be the case, but when it is, it's awesome. But usually they'll send it back, the art back to me, and so I write a full script, and so it's description of scenes, the dialogue, etc. And they'll send it to me. Here's the art for the book. And usually then I would go through, if they haven't put the bubbles in yet, and I do another pass. And almost every time I would delete, 5-10% of the words, because I want to give their art more room on the page than it's going to get with the larger bubbles and caption boxes and whatnot.
Yeah, my rule is, and I got this from my letter. I started working with a letter, and he gave me this rule because he knows my things are way too wordy, which was to try and keep a minimum general rule of 25 words. And I've said this before, so I'll probably repeat myself, but 25 words per balloon and 50 words per panel is a good general rule, and I try to keep to that. Yeah, I do give exceptions, but I like to. That's my general way of keeping it.
I was really proud of myself with the murder story, right? It's 20 pages.
Oh wow.
And I went and just did a hard count of the words, and it came out to just under 300 printed words in the whole comic.
Oh wow. Damn.
I'm like, yes.
Damn, that's
the visual story.
That's kind of wild. Yeah. Damn. Interesting. So what's that per page then? What does that come out to if that's 20 pages?
20, 300. Let's say it was right around 300. So 300 divided by 20. I'm gonna cheat on this one.
I know. I hate to admit that I'm not a math guy myself.
I
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'd be
15 words a page.
15, yeah.
So
okay, that's pretty good, man. That's pretty wild.
I was so proud of myself.
That is really good. That's a really tough thing to do.
Yeah, I wanted to see how minimalist can I go here, especially since I was doing horror. I was like, well,
yeah, that's awesome.
I think that you kind of gotta horror. Again, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to horror, but I was doing my best. There's an awful lot of mood and other things that go into it that if I use a lot of words, I'm just gonna step on.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah. Nice,
I've heard people talk about how do I say this? About how comics should be more art and less words. And I don't agree. I think that the medium works with both the words and with the art, and that there should be an equal balance in the story. I don't think there should be less words and more art is all I'm saying. I think you have to be clever. You can't just info dump shit all over the place. But
yeah,
I don't think that there needs to be that lesser than with that.
The older I get, the more I want comics though to be less wordy. I don't know how else to say this. I'm not saying that some wordy comics can't be amazing. I am saying that a lot of them can. And like Brian Michael Bendis is a very wordy writer, and it comes off as like reading a play rather than reading a comic book sometimes, just because of all the dialogue, and it's actually really hard. His writer he works with artists who are very clever about making room, but as a result, there's just a lot of and I don't know. It's just I don't typically like at least most of the really wordy comics these days. I don't know.
Must
I don't
have
know.
hated reading Watchmen then. With
No,
the prose after every single issue.
I said these days. Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know why it is that things like Watchmen were so, like, that was amazing, and yeah, it's a very wordy comic, and you can come up with all kinds of examples of very wordy comics in the past that I loved. I'm just saying that what I typically am seeing these days on the shelves, I'm very much a less is more guy.
Is that perhaps more reflective of the quality of the writing rather than the amount of words?
You could be. I will also say that, like, contra there are like wordless comics. So, and I'm not saying that all comics should be wordless by any stretch, but you could tell a story without words in comics. It's possible.
Yeah, you definitely can. I mean, there's that whole scene. What was that in the Nick Fury comic, where like the first 5 pages of it is just him breaking into that facility, and there are no words to it at all. It's just panel to panel him breaking into this facility. In fact, I think it was I want to say Infantino, not positive. Anyway,
Carmen Infantino.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. But I mean, he almost even didn't get paid for those 5 pages because there were no words on it. But but I mean, it's certainly possible. Maybe I'm a little bitter. I was once told that I should write comics for people who hate to read, and I just like, what the fuck?
No, I mean, I think that I'm a both and guy. Okay, I mean, I think that yes, you need words and you need images. They need to go together. But I will say this: I was once and I was in this group, and I was complaining about the quality of prose in comics. And who should answer me but Chuck Dixon? By the way, now he did it in a very clever way. He sent a bunch of wordless pages, like he just like dropped the images in there, and I'm like, so what's your point? And he's like, a writer wrote that. Like,
right,
like even though there's not a words on the page, that doesn't mean there isn't intelligence that goes into the design of it.
Definitely, yeah.
That makes sense. Like, I just got told by Chuck Dixon.
That's pretty funny, man.
Taking that back around to the script writing, I guess when I'm writing a comic book script, I look at it kind of like directing a movie. That it absolutely has to be. I have to take all the factors into going into it. How is this going to look into print? Is there room for the letterer? Is there enough room for the art? How is the flow of it? Am I hitting the beats on the page? All of that kind of stuff goes into writing it, and I mean, you absolutely have to take that into consideration.
But then again, there's also different directing styles. To use your analogy, right? Some directors are going to be more hands-on with stuff, but then others may be more hands-off and trust their second unit director or their cinematographer, or there may be more delegation depending on your style.
Can I tell a story about sure. So when I'm collaborating with a writer, and I write it full script. I don't do Marvel method, right? But sometimes the stuff you get back is a little different than what you thought that you said you wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at one point I was working with an artist named Sean Langley, and there's this comic where this guy kicks in a door, and I said, this is great, I love it, but didn't the script specify there's only supposed to be 2 guys in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, oh yeah, you're right. And then he thinks about it for a second. He goes, what if the door kills a guy? And I go, all right, fine.
Oh my god. That's one way to do it, yeah.
So we Wicked Witched the guy,
I love that kind of creative solution, I had a situation with Jeff like that in Barrels, but his solution wasn't nearly as fun as that
one. Sure, why not?
Guys, I gotta bounce out of here.
Okay,
well, we
man.
can go ahead and start wrapping up here. I think there was we got a good amount of time in here.
Okay.
What do you guys got? Any projects you want to tease or anything you want to tell us before you
Well,
going?
I'll just tell people, Growlylocks and the Three Humans and Three Feral Pigs and the Vegan Wolf. You can get these on Amazon. You can, if you want to get. Here's one for you can get these on Kindle for $6 for the two of them. Okay, both of them
Nice.
for actually $5.98, not even $6. And that's literally the cheapest we could go. They won't, unless you're a part of a certain program, they won't let you go any cheaper with that on Amazon because we wanted people to be able to get this at a bargain basement price.
Okay.
So check it out, people. These are fun stories, and no, they're not comics, but they have a comic book sensibility to them that I think you could appreciate.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Where can people follow you online to make sure they can check out all your stuff?
Well, here's a fun one. I finally have jeremylot.com up and running.
Oh, wow, really?
and it mentions and links to Movie Men, so you can also,
that's awesome, dude.
Trying to be a one-stop shop there.
That's what's up. I'll put that in the chat there.
So.
And that's got links to your social media and everything as well?
It does, yeah.
Nice, perfect. Excellent, man. Well, thank you. And then, Mike, what about you? Where can people follow you online?
Follow me at Comics Omen for Omen Comics and at Revelation Comic for Revelation Comics. We got a comic coming out here in just like I'm supposed to be getting the art here. I believe this month. It's called SAD, stands for Sad and Desperate. It is based on Nigerian mythology, and it's got conspiracy theories in it and weird monsters, and I mean it's a wild book. Tosin Awasika, our artist, wrote the book, and he draws it and everything, and I just scripted it out. But it's a wild ride, but it's a fun one. Anyway, that one should be coming out from Revelation Comics here in just a couple months.
Awesome. Really cool, man.
Yeah, you can find our books on Global Comics and also at the Wikid store.
At wikidpublishing.net. And then we also have new books coming out in print this month. Those are at the printer and should be coming into us real soon. They include the final issue of Barrels, which is Barrels number 4. It includes Jack Irons number 3, Wrath chapter 3. Also includes Albino Girl Dragon Warrior number 1.
Oh, nice.
And maybe that's it. I think that's it. I want to say that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually Dragon Girl.
Albino my bad. Warrior? Dragon Girl, Albino
Warrior.
I got it reversed there, I think. And then, I think that's the final. Oh, and then, I'm sorry. No, one more. Satyr number 1 as well, I believe.
Very cool.
Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, will be a lot of cool comics to look forward to. And a couple of those are Omens and Revelations comics. So,
yeah, Satyr is that Viking horror comic I was talking about earlier.
Yes, it'll be really exciting to have that out. So, well, thank you guys for jumping on. I appreciate it. It was a good chat with you guys.
I'm so glad I did. Thank you.
Yeah, yes, excellent. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, man. And it was really fun talking to you. And having Ebi on is always good. He's fun to catch up with. So, and
heck yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, hopefully we'll see you guys on a future one. And everyone have a great weekend. Take care, guys.
You too.
Bye-bye. Long and prosper.